So we're making a list of 3 songs in a particular order. We've got a waltz, a sonata, and an etude. It's of the jazz style. And so if we start this out, we'll just write it in the order that it was given. A WSE, okay? Now, if it's a WSE, a logical next step would be to change, we would change the last 2. And that way we can say, okay, well, we've exhausted all of our W's first options. Okay, and so start with something else like an S, SWE, or SEW. That would give us all of the possible combinations of starting with S. So the last thing we haven't started with yet would be the E, and if we did an S and a W and then an E and then a WS, that would give us all of the different ways of starting with E. So we've exhausted all of the different ways of starting with any of the different letters, so that's all we have. So how many different song orders? We have 6. So instead of making a list, we can go back and do what we did last week or in the previous worksheet, and that was to make a decision chart. And a decision chart is basically saying how many different songs could go first. Well, there's 3. There's only 3 that we're choosing from. After we've placed the first song, we wouldn't want to play the same song twice, so there's only 2 left in that second spot, followed by only 1. And if we're looking at how many different well, technically it's a permutation. We'll get into that definition later. If we're multiplying the different events in order, if we did a tree diagram, it would be 3 branching off to 2, branching off to 1. We'd be multiplying all the way across. 3 times 2 times 1 is that same number 6. And so if we jumped into this and pay attention to this, number 6 is asking kind of the same thing. In a traditional 6-period school day, how many different schedules are possible if we're looking at an English class, government, math analysis, Spanish, physics, and yearbook? Well, that would assume that we have 6 spaces available. Okay, and we wouldn't be talking about, can you have a 0 period? Could you have, something different like that? You'd have 6 choices times 5 times 4 times 3 times 2 times 1, and if you multiply that all together, that would be a certain number, I believe. And that would be, if I may, 720. Excellent. So now I skipped the first one because it's talking about probability. So this one here is just the same as we did there, but the probability that he takes math analysis first, we're thinking about that in terms of the probability. Okay. Well, there's only one of these 6 classes that's math analysis. So only 1 out of 6 chance that math analysis could be first, because it's the one class that we're talking about out of the 6 other classes that could be first period. Now when we talk about math analysis first period and physics second, well, we start out with the 1 out of 6, the probability of that first event, and then the second one is completely related to the next. You only have 5 choices for second period. So if you multiply those, you end up with a 1 out of 30. And so the chances of it being a specific become more and more less likely, I guess, as you line them up. And so if you talk about the probability that it's in exactly this order that we see it, it would be the equivalent of saying 1/6 times 1/5 times 1/4 times 1/3, and so on. And so if there's 720 possible, 1 out of 720 basically are that.